In this video, we're going to talk about one of the most diverse and fascinating flower families on the planet, the orchid. Now, you might know them as a pretty common houseplant, but they are absolutely full of incredible secrets, from their wild sizes and shapes to their super clever survival tricks. So let's dive into the amazing story of the orchid. And right off the bat, here's one of the orchid's best surprises. Take a look at this. This is the monkey orchid. And yes, its lip, that's a special kind of petal, is shaped exactly like a tiny monkey's face. Isn't that wild? This is just a tiny taste of how creative this flower family can be. So first things first, let's break down what actually makes an orchid, well, an orchid. Most orchids you'll find share this same basic blueprint. They've got this perfect symmetry, you could basically fold them in half and they'd match up. But the real star of the show is that modified petal at the bottom. It's called the lip, or labellum, and it's basically a welcome mat or a landing strip for pollinators. It's a signature part of their design. But here is where things get really crazy. The sheer scale of this family. On one end of the spectrum, you've got the giant tiger orchid, which can grow up to 3 meters tall. Then, on the other end, the smallest orchid ever found has flowers just half a millimeter wide. It was so tiny, people thought it was a fungus at first. That incredible range just shows you how adaptable these plants are. And you know, it's not just their size that's all over the map. Orchids are a true global superpower. They've pretty much conquered every corner of the world. Seriously, they grow on every single continent except Antarctica. But the tropics? That's where the party's at. Places like Ecuador and Colombia are the hot spots where their diversity just completely explodes. And to put that into perspective for you, with over 28,000 known species, orchids make up between 6 and 11% of all seed plants on Earth. That is a huge slice of the pie, making them one of the biggest and most successful plant families out there. So the big question is, how did they get so successful? Well, the secret is in their totally genius, and sometimes sneaky, strategies for survival and making more orchids. You see, their life starts with a team-up. Orchid seeds are like dust. They're tiny and have zero food packed inside. So to even start growing, they have to partner up with a very specific type of fungus. This fungus buddy gives the seed the nutrients it needs to sprout into a little ball of cells. This whole dependency on fungi is a huge part of the orchid story. You know, their whole life cycle is so intricate, so clever, that even the great Charles Darwin was completely obsessed with them. He actually wrote an entire book just studying how they get pollinated, and he was just blown away by their incredible adaptations. And talk about clever, some orchids are absolute masters of disguise. The bee orchid, for example, looks and smells so much like a female bee that it tricks male bees into trying to mate with it. And that's how it gets its pollen moved around. Genius, right? On top of their sneaky tricks, orchids are also built to last. When they finally bloom, those flowers can stick around for an incredibly long time, sometimes for more than half a year. Most of them put on their big show in the spring and fall. But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. They've got plenty of enemies, from your regular garden pests like slugs and mites to much, much bigger threats from us humans, like illegal collecting and just straight up destroying their homes. So what about us? Our relationship with orchids is, well, it's pretty complicated, stretching all the way from our dinner plates to our philosophy. Okay, I know you're probably wondering, can you actually eat these things? The answer is a big yes. In fact, you probably already have. The world's most popular flavor, vanilla, comes from the seed pod of an orchid. Beyond that, the flowers themselves are used in salads, and there's even a traditional Turkish drink called salat made from them. But they're not just for eating. Orchids carry some really deep cultural meaning, too. In East Asian art, for instance, the orchid is a symbol of spring, and it represents all these wonderful things like nobility, humility, and loyalty. Alright, so you've brought one home. How on earth do you keep it alive? Looking after orchids can feel a little intimidating, but it really just comes down to a few basics. The number one mistake people make is overwatering them. You only want to water the roots when they start to look dry. Give them a nice bright spot with indirect light, and, this is super important, use a special potting mix with stuff like bark and charcoal that lets the air get to the roots. Okay, before we wrap this up, I have a few last totally mind-blowing facts that just show how incredible these plants really are. So get this, scientists think the very first orchids showed up on the scene over 76 million years ago. Yep, that means they were around at the exact same time as the dinosaurs. And when it comes to making babies, they play a numbers game. A single orchid seed pod can hold up to 3.4 million seeds. It's just unbelievable. But this last one, this might be my favorite. There's an orchid in Australia that lives its entire life underground. It never sees the sun, and it actually depends on ants to pollinate it. How amazing is that? From sharing the planet with dinosaurs to mastering the art of deception and forming these life or death partnerships, the orchid is just so much more than a pretty flower. Alright, that is it for this video, everyone. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.